This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, ex-CIA station chief exposes the myth of the lone wolf. What an honor and a privilege it is to have with us this evening Brad Johnson, retired CIA station chief. Brad Johnson, welcome to the Glazov Gang.
Jamie, thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to join you this evening.
Honor to have you here. Now, Brad, just for our viewers and of course for myself, I've been researching you and listening to all the profound things you are saying. But let us begin with this. You retired, but you are so concerned about what you see happening that you've quote unquote come back to participate. Tell us a little bit about your return and what you're so concerned about.
Well, certainly seeing the degradation that took place during the previous 8 years under the former administration, under former Director Brennan, who actually bragged in an interview that the CIA no longer does espionage, and now that all the only things we do are done in cooperation with our foreign partners and so on. I mean, that just the idiocy of that. It may not be immediately clear to anyone listening just precisely what that means, because the intelligence world is such a close-knit industry, if you'll allow me to call it that. But that's akin to announcing that for the Joint Chiefs of Staff to come out and announce that the Navy no longer puts ships out into the sea, or the Air Force no longer puts airplanes in the air. It's just something so hideously stupid that it just drove me insane. That, in combination with one other thing, there was a case of an agency officer who'd left the agency and retired in Europe, and was arrested and convicted of participating in kidnapping. It was part of the rendition program of where we were picking up terrorists. And this was a known terrorist involved with bombings and things like that was picked up in Italy. The Italian government changed, and then as a political winch hunt, they went back and arrested this woman and convicted her. That's when I became public. That was the issue, and created as much of a stink as I could, and got a lot of political interest going and behind it, and we actually ended up getting that case. It was the Sabrina D'Souza case. Some support for it out of the new White House here, and I had a couple of meetings with NSC and things like that just to talk about the case and try to present the facts and try to get it fixed, because what you had is a CIA officer who was legitimately doing her duty under lawful orders, was part of a rendition program, pulling these terrorists off the street and sending them to Gitmo or wherever, and was then convicted as a crime after she'd left the agency, and then was thrown under the bus. This was under the former director Brennan, and was just abandoned out there, and that just couldn't be allowed. So that was what brought me out to speak publicly.
Yeah, Brad, just when the left is in control, I mean, it's just such a surreal catastrophe everywhere you look. So since you've mentioned Brennan, let's just talk about him for a second. So, and I'm sure the KGB and ISIS is just so terrified finding out that the CIA doesn't do espionage anymore. But John Guandolo, when he, former FBI, and he said that Brennan was the target of a Saudi conversion operation, and that Brennan converted to Islam. Now, whether it's true or not, here's what I want to ask. I saw Brennan. I studied Brennan. Oh, when he was speaking Arabic, I mean, you could just see the ecstasy in his face, and his definition of jihad, of how it's just your personal commitment to going to the gym and becoming a better person and having a better diet. All of that care BS that he was telling us. My question is here: why wouldn't the media even ask one question if that is something that has been stated about him?
Yeah, tough question. Certainly that Brennan has made comments to that effect within the agency. I personally never heard him say any of those things, but others have heard him say that. So I believe the claim is true that he converted to Islam. As to why the press would not ask such a question, I think it's one of those, as Al Gore would like to say, inconvenient truths. I don't think it played well for the public. I don't think the public would have responded particularly well to it, so they left it alone because they didn't want any negative reflection on the agency under the Obama administration.
Wait a minute. You're saying that you never heard Brennan say he converted to Islam, but many people in the CIA were saying that he did.
Correct.
Right.
I personally never heard it, but people have told me they have heard it.
Right. I just find it incredible that if a CIA chief is a Muslim and we are in a conflict with Islam where Muslims are inspired by Islamic texts to attack us, that I think that this would be somewhat relevant, right?
Well, yes, I would think so too. I would be, and to further that argument, I would say, what did he do? He gutted the operational capability, which is to say that the clandestine covert operations and espionage capability of the CIA. So, in having done that, I think he damaged, and you could call that an attack. I would. I think he was extraordinarily damaging to the CIA and national security of the United States as director of the CIA.
Right, just incredible what our higher literary culture and our establishment media actually thinks is news and what it doesn't think is news. Because I'm not saying he was, I'm just asking why wasn't a question asked or why wasn't there an investigation. Brad, look, I don't think we have much to worry about anymore in our terror war because Islam is a religion of peace, and when there's an attack, hey, it could just be a lone wolf. So if it's a lone wolf, there's no problem anymore. Am I correct?
Well, I certainly see where you're going with this, and the lone wolf is absolute complete nonsense and a fallacy. And let me just briefly explain why it's not this. Under the previous administration, of course, they declared victory and at the same time pulled back our counter-terrorist operations. I think the plan for the Obama administration was that attacks would die off because they claimed victory. There's no more problems with terrorism. They pulled off the counterterrorism programs, so these guys that had been terrorists would just go home and get a job or something like that because they knew they were no longer going to be tracked down by the United States, therefore peace for everybody. Now, of course, that didn't work out that way, and there started to be more and more attacks. ISIS took off and became a major player in the world. And so when these attacks increased, what had to happen was they were calling it workplace violence and all these different things to sort of avoid the main issue of what was going on in these attacks. So as a spin-off of that, these people that have been convinced to go do these terrorist attacks were called lone wolves and self-radicalized and all that sort of stuff. But what ISIS and Al-Qaeda as well are doing, they have well-organized, well-funded programs that troll social media, looking for misfits or people that are that lean towards wanting to do damage to Americans or Western Europe or so on and kill people. Anyone that has any tendency to be involved with that sort of thing, they're trolling for them constantly on social media. They find them, contact them, and then they set up what we in the agency would call tradecraft. They communicate with them securely. So that's things that then cannot be traced back. Like for an example, there's a messaging app that's used by a lot of people. It's huge, and it's called Telegram. Telegram has 78 public channels run by ISIS, 78 public channels. They have dozens and dozens of private channels that they use for communications as well. So they get these people, start channeling them into these applications that they can use for communications, and then spin them off into these little private chat rooms and things like that. From that point forward, all communications are fully clandestine, fully secret. Nobody can find it. And after the attacks take place, where they've received instructions from ISIS what to do and when and how, and they discuss all the details of this. Use an axe, it's scarier, take the car, drive through the crowd, all of these sorts of things. After it's all said and done, and this is not a particular criticism of law enforcement, let me make that clear. They come behind and start researching and investigating and so on, and they come to a dead end because all of the communications that take place with ISIS are done through tradecraft. They're done through secure means. So there is no way to track those back down. Law enforcement is held to a standard where they're supposed to present things that are provable at a court type setting. So intelligence, we're not faced with those restrictions. So we just look at it. We know what they're doing and can talk about it. Law enforcement is in a different situation. They can't prove it. So therefore, they cannot destroy this myth of the lone wolf. All of these guys, all of them, not a single one of them just does this on his own. And take the case of the guy in Orlando that went into the gay bar just almost exactly a year ago in June of last year, walked into the gay bar in Orlando and killed 50 some odd people and wounded, I think, 70 or something like that. But he hurt a lot of people. And he just in the latest issue of Rumiyah magazine, which is the ISIS online magazine, was named in there by his name to immortalize him as part of a recruiting tool and stuff like that. And he had dedicated himself to al-Baghdadi, the head of ISIS, and that sort of stuff. But all his communications were secret. So even there, they call this guy a lone wolf, and we don't know his motive and all that, which is just nonsense. I mean, just nonsense.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brad. I think all that I would add is there's something else kind of bizarre and surreal here, because even hypothetically, if a very devout Muslim by himself, not communicating with anyone, opens up the Quran, reads Surah 9:5, 9:29, 47:4, all this stuff about killing unbelievers, smiting them at their necks, and goes and does something, even if he's quote-unquote a lone wolf, I think it's still a problem that there's a book that inspires and sanctions violence against unbelievers. This is a problem.
Yeah, certainly acting it out. And you've got an environment now that exists in Islam where people use the term moderate, so I'll use it. I'm not sure it's a good term to use, but the Muslims who don't want to be involved with this stuff are running scared. It's difficult to be that sort of person in Islam right now, and the control of the religion and the driving force is now the radicals. So it's dangerous for somebody who's a Muslim to not at least verbally support these sort of activities and so on.
Brad, I wish I had an hour rather than only a few minutes left. Brad, look, we definitely see something on the left with the Democrats, the leftist media, etc. Something's going on in terms of their surrender, in terms of their betrayal. I mean, in terms of this effort to bring in just masses of refugees from the Islamic world, people that believe in Sharia and jihad, etc. What, in your view, is going on with the Democrats and with the left?
Well, actually, yeah, we would need that full hour you mentioned to go into all of that in detail. And I would actually love to refer back to your book, United in Hate, because these connections between radical Islam, Latin America, the left in the United States are just absolutely overwhelming. And any viewer who is interested can easily search this under transnational organized crime. And that's where you see all these connections between them all. Yeah, it's just it's such a big subject to get into it. I hesitate to do it, but I would go back to your book. I thought that was a wonderful foundation for this, written ahead of its time. But it's all playing out now. You have Iran has Spanish language television in Latin America done in production with like Venezuela and Bolivia and Nicaragua and these countries, and they're just extraordinarily active. And these connections, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Brad, because we're running out of time. I thank you for mentioning my book. By the way, any guest that mentions my book on the show immediately gets invited back for the next week's episode. But Brad, before we go, just the SOBs on the left, just this malice. I believe a lot of it is malice. I watched quite a bit of what you were saying. Can you just spend a minute or two on how Obama handicapped our men in Afghanistan? This is a real treachery here.
It is. Some of my friends who were on bases, military that were on bases in Afghanistan would come home and tell me some of the stories of the things that were done. And to me personally, what exemplifies it is when U.S. military trained in the use of arms were on base in Afghanistan, they were not allowed to carry a weapon. On base in Afghanistan, not allowed to carry a weapon. And not only that, to add insult to injury, they had to wear those bright orange and green vests, like that guys who are out repairing the roads at night. So they're the reflective vests. You can easily see them. I mean, in the industry, we call that the shoot me first vest. So they're on base, overseas, trained military, not allowed to carry weapons to defend themselves, and have to wear a shoot me first vest. I mean, that to me just typifies the philosophy used by the Obama administration in handling the military. It was just, it's a horrible sin.
And Brad, you know, Stephen Coughlin documented this in his masterpiece, Catastrophic Failure. But in there, he writes how these poor American boys and girls would write to their families, call their families, and they would say, we are more afraid of the rules than of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, because that's what's going to get us killed. It it's a crime. It's a crime what Obama was doing. I hope that Trump is turning it around. So let's end it on this note, because we got to go. Brad, if Trump called you and said, the CIA chief's on the other line, we would like Brad Johnson to tell us, what is your advice to Donald Trump and to the CIA head of what they need to start doing in this terror war?
Well, interesting that you should ask precisely that question, because in fact, the new director, Mike Pompeo, is someone I've met and talked to and had that conversation. So I already told him everything that I thought he should do. And I can tell you in a nutshell, we can defeat terrorism at any time. It's not brain surgery to know what to do. They have to reinvigorate the military, get the training and equipment and everything they need back to them, and do the same thing at the CIA. Reinvigorate operations at the CIA as a dedicated cadre of people who, like myself, have years of background and training and experience, and then can go out and make things happen. It's that combination of intelligence with the military working hand in hand to go get these guys. That's what it takes. That's what will destroy them. And those capabilities have been degraded. So President Trump and Mike Pompeo, that's what they need to do. That is the solution. It's not that difficult to do. It just has to be implemented. And unfortunately, that swamp has not yet been drained. And at the agency, the people that were in charge are still there, with the exception of Mike. And he's surrounded by people that were there under the previous regime with previous director Brennan. So I don't know how he's going to turn it around as long as the situation sits that way. The military, on the other hand, I think they're on the right track. I think they're good. They're getting back to what they need to be, and they're going to be ready to move forward. And they can certainly carry the bulk of the load, but they need the intelligence to take place at the same time. It makes our guys come home more safely, and the bad guys go home in a bag.
Right. Brad Johnson, I wish we had more time. Please come back on the show.
Jamie, it would be my great pleasure. I'd love to do so.
And Brad Johnson, thank you so much for your service to this country. Thank you for coming back out of retirement to fight for our freedoms and our liberties, and for sharing all your profound wisdom in terms of how to, defend our civilization. Thank you.
Jamie, thank you.
And for our audience of the Glazov Gang, thank you very much for joining in. Please remember, we're a fan-generated program. If you like what we do and support us, please go to jamieglazov.com to support the show, and make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel of the Glazov Gang. Good night.